Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're tackling a question lots of you have been asking. Is advanced micro devices, AMD, a good time to buy right now? We've pulled together the latest financials, market analysis, industry reports, trying to give you a really comprehensive look at where AMD stands. Before we jump in, though, if you find this discussion helpful, please think about subscribing, maybe liking the video, leave a comment. It really helps us keep doing these. And yeah, if there's a company you want us to look into next, just let us know below. Oh, and if you're feeling generous, you could always consider buying us a coffee. Link's probably down there too.
It really is an incredibly dynamic time for semiconductors, isn't it? And AMD is, well, right in the thick of it, especially with this whole AI surge. This question, it forces you to look at, not just the recent numbers, but also the big future possibilities and, crucially, the potential roadblocks, too.
Okay, let's unpack that. So AMD just announced their Q2 2025 results. The big headline was record revenue. They hit $7.7 billion for the quarter.
Yeah, that's a big number.
It's up, 32% from last year and 3% from Q1. Net income was $872 million and diluted earnings per share at 54 cents. Pretty impressive top line, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what's the key detail underneath that for someone thinking about investing?
Well, yeah, beyond those headlines, the really fascinating part, I think, is the growth margin. So you saw GAAP gross margin at 40% and non-GAAP at 43%. But it's not quite that simple.
Okay.
Because the non-GAAP number, which usually gives you a clearer picture of the ongoing business by adjusting for, one-off things, well, it was heavily impacted. The U.S. government's export controls, they led to about $800 million in inventory charges and related costs just in this quarter.
$800 million?
Yeah, a significant hit. So if you actually back those charges out, the non-GAAP gross margin would have been closer to 54%.
54%? Okay, that's quite a difference.
It really is. It shows the underlying business profitability is actually quite strong. And, that $800 million charge is also why you saw that GAAP operating loss of $134 million. It's all tied together.
Right. So that loss isn't necessarily a sign of core weakness then. If we look past that charge, what does it say about AMD's immediate financial health? Is it really just a one-off?
It definitely looks more like a one-off event, yeah. I mean, despite that charge, you're still seeing strong cash flow generation from the business. That's always a good sign. And get this, client revenue is up 68% for the first half of 2025 compared to last year. 68%.
Huge jump.
And their interest expenses are pretty moderate. So overall, the financial health looks pretty solid. Even with that export control hit, the core business seems robust.
Okay, so solid health underneath. But where's the growth actually coming from? You mentioned client revenue, but let's break down the segments.
Absolutely. So the data center segment brought in $3.2 billion. That's up 14% year over year. And that was mostly driven by strong demand for their EPYC server processors, the chips that go into data centers. And what's really crucial here is that this growth more than offset the problems they had shipping their Instinct MI308 AI chips to China because of those export rules we talked about.
So demand elsewhere basically filled the gap from China.
Exactly, which tells you demand is really, really strong outside of that specific issue.
Okay, powerful. What about the other parts of the business?
Well, client and gaming just absolutely soared. Revenue hit $3.6 billion, up 69% year over year.
69%.
Yeah. And within that, client revenue itself, laptops, desktops, was a record $2.5 billion. That's up 67%, mainly because people are buying the new Zen 5 Ryzen desktop chips and probably higher-end ones too, like a richer mix.
Makes sense.
Gaming revenue also jumped significantly, up 73% to $1.1 billion.
Wow.
The only softer spot was the embedded segment. That was $824 million, down about 4% year over year. Seems like mixed demand in those, more specialized markets.
Okay, so really strong performance, especially client and gaming.
Yeah.
But connecting this back to the strategy, what's driving this? And what are the big plays AMD is making, especially around AI? That seems to be where everyone's focused.
Yeah, AI is definitely the key focus. At the recent Advancing AI 2025 event, they really laid out their roadmap. They showcased the new AMD Instinct MI350 series GPUs. These are their heavy hitters, designed to go head-to-head with NVIDIA for complex AI work. They also talked about their next big thing, the Helios rack scale system, which will use future MI400 GPUs. And importantly, they highlighted the AMD ROCm7 software stack. That's their open source AI software, which is critical for getting developers on board and making their hardware easy to use. Building that ecosystem is key.
The hardware is only part part of the equation. You
Yeah.
need the software and developers. Are they building partnerships too?
Oh, absolutely. The partnerships are pretty impressive. They're working closely with, the big names, Meta, OpenAI, xAI, Oracle, Microsoft. There was that big announcement with Humane. They're planning to deploy 500 megawatts of AI compute capacity using AMD tech over the next 5 years. That is a massive scale.
500 megawatts.
Oh, yeah. And you've got others like Red Hat using EPYC for enterprise stuff, KDDI for 5G networks in Japan, Nokia using their latest EPYC chips in their cloud platform. It really shows broad adoption. And just look at the supercomputer space. AMD now powers 172 systems on the top 500 list, including the top 2 fastest machines in the world.
Number 1 and 2.
Yep. It shows they're really competing at the absolute highest level of performance. Plus, they keep refreshing their consumer stuff, too. New Ryzen Threadrippers for creators, new Radeon GPUs for gamers. They're hitting multiple fronts.
And speaking of strategic moves, there was that other big announcement. They're selling their ZT Systems data center manufacturing business to Sanmina for $3 billion. What's that about? Seems like a shift.
Yeah, that's a really important strategic move, I think. First, it brings in a nice chunk of cash, $3 billion. But more importantly, it lets AMD really sharpen its focus. They want to concentrate on their core strength, designing cutting-edge chips, especially for AI, manufacturing the whole data center rack infrastructure that's maybe less core for them now. So they divest that part to Sanmina, streamline things, and plow those resources back into R&D for the next generation of chips. It's about doubling down on what they do best.
Right, focus on the high-value design part. That makes sense strategically.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking ahead then, what's the guidance for Q3? What should you expect next quarter?
So for Q3 2025, AMD is guiding for revenue of about $8.7 billion, give or take $300 million.
$8.7 billion.
Yeah, at the midpoint, that's around 28% growth year over year and about 13% sequential growth from Q2. So continued strong growth. And they expect non-GAAP gross margin to be around 54%, right back to that healthier underlying level we talked about.
Okay.
Now, here's the really important caveat. That guidance does not include any revenue from those Instinct MI308 AI chips going to China.
Still zero assumed for those.
Still zero assumed. The license applications are apparently still under review by the U.S. government, so that remains a big unknown. Could be upside if licenses come through, or just continued headwinds if they don't.
Got it. So strong outlook, strong tailwinds, especially AI, but every investment has risks. What are the main challenges or hurdles that could trip up AMD stock?
Yeah, connecting it back to the bigger picture, that number one risk is still those U.S. export controls. We saw the $800 million charge in Q2. But there's more. AMD now apparently has to pay the U.S. government 15% of its China chip sales revenue for the licenses it does get.
15% off the top.
Seems so. That directly hits profit margins on those sales and just makes planning much harder for that specific market. Then there's competition, obviously. NVIDIA still holds a very strong position in AI infrastructure, especially when you talk about these huge integrated rack-scale systems.
Right, they had a head start there.
They did. It's kind of like NVIDIA's got the established fortress, maybe, and AMD is launching these powerful assaults with things like the MI350 now and looking ahead to the MI400 in 2026. A lot of analysts are watching really closely to see if those future MI400 chips can truly close the gap and challenge NVIDIA's dominance at the highest end. It's a key battleground.
Makes sense. Any other risks?
Well, the usual suspects for a chip company, really. High R&D spending is necessary but costly. The semiconductor market is famously cyclical, prone to booms and busts, though AI might smooth that somewhat. And, of course, broader geopolitical risks. Trade tensions, supply chain disruptions, things like that can always pop up. But, flip side, there are strong potential catalysts, too.
Okay, like what?
Strong Q3 and Q4 earnings would obviously help, especially if that global AI chip demand stays as hot as it has been. Successful launches and quick ramps of the new MI350 accelerators and those Zen 5 Ryzen products are critical. Execution matters. Continued expansion in AI and data centers is the big long-term story, and if the overall economy holds up or improves, that general tech spending environment provides a tailwind too. So it's definitely a balanced picture. Risks and opportunities.
Okay, putting it all together, what are the analysts saying? What's the overall street sentiment on AMD right now?
The consensus among analysts who cover the stock is currently a moderate buy. That's based on looking at recent ratings. About 26 analysts have buy ratings, 12 have holds, and interestingly, 0 have sell ratings right now.
0 sells. That's notable.
It is. And the average price target is around $181.36 per share, which, depending on the day, implies maybe, 3.5% or so upside potential from where the stock has been trading recently. Not a huge upside in the average target, but positive.
Okay, so for you, listening right now, trying to weigh this up for your own portfolio.
Yeah.
What's the practical takeaway from all this?
I think AMD presents a really compelling mix. You've got growth, you've got innovation, you've got clear market share gains in really attractive areas, AI, data centers, even PCs and servers with EPYC and Ryzen, that record revenue, the positive analyst outlook, the company's own bullish guidance for the rest of the year. Those are strong points that, help balance out those risks, like the expo control issues. Now, the valuation, some might look at it and say it seems a bit high, maybe premium compared to its own history.
That's not exactly a value stock.
No, definitely not. But the argument is that the premium is warranted because of the huge growth prospects, especially in AI, and their proven ability to innovate and execute. And technically, the chart watchers will point out the stock's been in a strong uptrend, trading above its key moving averages, the 50-day and 200-day, usually seen as a bullish sign, suggesting momentum.
Right. The trend has been up. So the bottom line then, for someone trying to decide, is now the time for AMD?
Look, if you have a long-term investment horizon thinking years, not months, AMD looks pretty well positioned, I'd say. The whole secular growth trend in AI and data centers isn't going away anytime soon, and AMD has shown it can execute and grab share in that environment. That really favors holding for the long haul to capture the potential upside. Now, if you're a short-term trader, you just need to be aware that there's likely to be continued volatility. News headlines about regulations, competition, quarterly numbers, those can cause sharp swings. So manage your risk. Exactly. And maybe something for you to think about is this. We live in a world that's becoming more and more reliant on this incredibly advanced tech, on AI. How is this constant interplay, this dance between global innovation pushing forward and international policy trying to shape or control it? How is that going to keep shaping companies like AMD, the very ones building that digital future? It's a bigger question than just the next quarter's earnings.
That is a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for taking us through all that detail on AMD. We'll be back soon with another discussion. Until then, stay informed and make wise choices.